At my son's 10th birthday party, my wife's brother shoved his face into his dream birthday cake. He ended up with a minor burn. My wife defended him. The next day, I showed up at their house with a baseball bat and taught them a lesson they would never forget. You know that feeling when everything's got to be perfect? That's exactly where my head was at 3 weeks before Liam's 10th birthday. My name's Marcus, and I'm 35. Been working as a mechanical engineer here in San Antonio for the better part of a decade now. The job's steady, pays the bills, and gives me enough flexibility to be the kind of dad I always wanted to be. But man, nothing prepares you for the pressure of making your kids' birthday dreams come true. Liam's not like other kids his age. While his classmates are out there playing tackle football in the yard or getting into trouble at the mall, my boy's got his nose buried in some thick science book, or he's hunched over his desk building these insanely detailed Lego robots that would put some actual engineers to shame. The kid's got this brilliant mind that just works differently, you know? He sees patterns where other people see chaos, finds solutions where others see problems. Sure, it makes him a little quiet at school sometimes, but I've always told him that being different isn't something to apologize for. This year was different, though. For the first time since he was old enough to have opinions about his own party, Liam wanted to plan every single detail himself. And when I say every detail, I mean this kid had spreadsheets. Actual spreadsheets. Color-coded and everything. He'd been sketching designs for his cake since February, erasing and redrawing until he got it just right. A space captain themed masterpiece with fondant planets orbiting around the main layer, silver stars scattered across a deep blue galaxy background, and crowning it all, a rocket ship that looked like it could actually blast off to Mars. Dad, do you think they can make Saturn's rings look real? He'd asked me one evening while we were going over his plans for the 100th time. His eyes were lit up with this excitement that just made my chest tight with pride. This wasn't just a cake to him. It was his vision coming to life. I spent weeks calling around to different bakeries in town, showing them Liam's sketches, explaining how important this was. Most of them looked at me like I was nuts, talking about fondant rocket ships and edible glitter. But finally, I found this small place downtown run by this woman named Rosa who totally got it. She looked at Liam's drawings and said, "This kid's an artist. We're going to make this happen." The party planning became this whole family project. Camille, my wife, threw herself into decorating mode, transforming our backyard into what looked like mission control. She strung up these LED lights that twinkled like real stars and painted cardboard boxes to look like control panels. Even my mother-in-law got involved, helping Liam design invitations that looked like official space mission briefings. But here's the thing about Liam that really gets to me. He'd been practicing how to blow out his candles. This kid who could solve math problems that stumped high schoolers was genuinely worried about messing up the simple act of making a wish and blowing out 10 little flames. He'd stand in front of the bathroom mirror, taking deep breaths, counting to 3, then whooshing out air like his life depended on it. What if I blow too hard and the rocket falls over? He'd worry, adjusting his glasses the way he always did when he was anxious. What if I don't blow hard enough and some candles stay lit? What if everyone's watching and I mess it up? I'd ruffle his hair and tell him, "Buddy, there's no wrong way to blow out birthday candles. It's your day, your rules." But inside, I was making mental notes about everything that could go wrong, every detail that needed to be perfect for him. The only dark cloud hanging over this whole thing was Derek, my wife's younger brother, 27 years old and still acting like he's in some frat house somewhere. Derek's the kind of guy who thinks being loud equals being funny, who never learned that there's a time and place for everything. He's got this way of taking over any room he walks into, usually by doing something stupid that gets everyone's attention. Liam had been asking about the guest list for weeks, and every time Derek's name came up, I could see this little shadow cross his face. My son's smart enough to pick up on tension, and he remembered what happened at my birthday earlier that year. Derek's prank, where he shoved my face straight into my own cake while everyone was singing. The way frosting got up my nose, in my ears, completely humiliating me in front of my own family. And the worst part? Everyone laughed. Everyone except Liam, who just stared with these big, worried eyes. That night, after I'd cleaned cake out of my hair and tried to play it off like it was no big deal, Liam had crawled into bed with Camille and me. "Dad?" he'd whispered in the dark. "What if Uncle Derek does that to me?" I promised him then and there, Uncle Derek or no Uncle Derek, nobody was going to ruin his special day. This was Liam's moment to shine, to feel celebrated and safe and loved. After all those weeks of planning, all those careful sketches and practice sessions in the mirror, my kid deserved to have everything go exactly the way he dreamed it would. Looking back now, I wish I'd trusted that gut feeling that was telling me Derek was going to be a problem. I wish I'd been more direct, more firm about setting boundaries. But at the time, I figured one clear warning would be enough. I figured even Derek wouldn't be stupid enough to mess with a 10-year-old's birthday party. Man, was I wrong about that. The confrontation I'd been dreading happened 3 days after my birthday disaster, and honestly, I should have seen it coming from a mile away. Derek showed up at our house unannounced. Typical Derek move. While Camille was at her book club and Liam was upstairs doing homework. The guy just waltzed through our front door like he owned the place, grabbing a beer from our fridge without even asking. "Yo, Marcus," he called out, already halfway through cracking open that Budweiser. "Dude, you should have seen your face with all that cake frosting. I got it on video, man. Posted it on TikTok and everything. Already got like 3,000 views. That's when I knew I had to shut this down, hard and fast." See, Derek's the kind of guy who thinks embarrassing people is peak comedy. He's been pulling this crap since he was a teenager, and somehow his family just lets it slide. Boys will be boys, his mom always says. Derek's just having fun. But there's a difference between fun and being a straight-up bully, and I was done pretending otherwise. I set down the wrench I'd been using to fix Liam's bike and walked into the kitchen. Derek was leaning against our granite countertop, scrolling through his phone, probably checking how many likes his stupid video got. The dude's 27 years old and still measuring his self-worth by social media engagement. It's honestly pathetic when you think about it. "Derek, we need to talk," I said, keeping my voice level but firm. "I've learned over the years that the calmer you stay, the more seriously people take you. Start yelling, and suddenly you're the crazy one, you know?" He looked up from his phone with this smirk that I wanted to wipe right off his face. "What's up, big bro? Still salty about the cake thing? Come on, man, it was hilarious. You gotta learn to laugh at yourself." That's the thing about Derek. Everything's a joke to him until someone gets hurt, and even then, he'll find a way to make it about how everyone else is being too sensitive. But I'd watched my son's face that day, seen how scared he looked when Derek got that wild look in his eyes. Liam knew what was coming before it happened, and that's what really got to me. A 10-year-old shouldn't have to live in fear of his own uncle. "Listen to me very carefully," I said, stepping closer so he couldn't mistake my meaning. "Liam's birthday is coming up in a few weeks. I'm telling you right now, don't you dare pull any of your pranks on him. Not the cake thing, not anything. I'm serious as a heart attack about this." Derek actually laughed. Like I just told him the funniest joke in the world. "Dude, relax. It's just a birthday party. Kids love that stuff. You're being way too uptight." "No," I said, and I could feel my jaw getting tight. Kids don't love getting humiliated in front of their friends. Kids don't love having their special moment turn into your comedy show. Liam's been planning this party for months, Derek. Months. He's got every detail mapped out, and he's nervous enough about it already. The truth is, I'd been watching Liam practice his birthday wish in the mirror for weeks. The kid would stand there, close his eyes real tight, whisper something I couldn't quite hear, then blow out imaginary candles with this look of pure concentration on his face. It was the sweetest damn thing I'd ever seen, and the thought of Derek ruining that moment made my blood boil. "Oh, come on," Derek said, taking another swig of my beer. "You're making it sound like I'm some kind of monster." "I'm just trying to make things fun. Loosen up a little, Marcus. Not everything has to be so serious all the time." That's when I really lost my patience. Fun for who, exactly? Because it wasn't fun for me when you humiliated me in front of my family. It wasn't fun for Liam when he watched his dad get disrespected in his own house. And it sure as hell won't be fun for him if you pull that garbage on his birthday. Derek rolled his eyes and pulled out his phone again. "Whatever, man. You're overthinking this. Camille thinks you're being way too protective anyway. She told me you've been stressed out about work and stuff." And there it was, the classic Derek move. When he can't win an argument on his own merits, he throws Camille under the bus, tries to make it seem like I'm the unreasonable one. But I knew my wife better than that. Sure, she had a blind spot when it came to her little brother, but she'd never said I was being too protective of Liam. That was pure Derek manipulation. I don't care what anyone else thinks, I said, and I meant every word. I'm Liam's father, and I'm telling you, hands off. One warning, Derek. That's all you get. He shrugged like he was doing me some huge favor. Fine, fine. I'll keep my hands to myself. Happy now. But there was something in his tone, this dismissive edge that told me he wasn't taking me seriously at all. He thought I was just blowing off steam, that I'd cool down and forget about it by the time the party rolled around. But as I watched him finish my beer and saunter out of my house like nothing had happened, I made myself a promise. If Derek so much as looked at my son the wrong way during that party, there were going to be consequences. Real consequences. The kind that would make him think twice before messing with my family ever again. I just had no idea how soon I'd have to make good on that promise. The morning of Liam's birthday started out like something straight out of a movie. I'm talking picture-perfect Texas weather, clear blue skies, temperature sitting pretty at 75 degrees, just enough breeze to keep everyone comfortable. Camille had been up since dawn putting the finishing touches on our backyard transformation, and I gotta say, she'd outdone herself. The place looked like NASA headquarters mixed with a kid's wildest space dreams. She'd hung these silver streamers between the oak trees that caught the sunlight and shimmered like actual starlight. The cardboard spaceships she'd painted looked so real that Liam's friend Owen actually asked if they were real space equipment. Even the tables were covered with these dark blue tablecloths dotted with glow-in-the-dark stars that would show up once the sun started setting. My wife might drive me crazy sometimes, but when she commits to something, she goes all out. Liam woke up with this grin that could have powered the whole neighborhood. Kid bounced out of bed like he had springs in his feet, already dressed in his Space Captain t-shirt that we'd ordered special online. He'd been wearing that thing to sleep for the past week, and Camille had to sneak it away to wash it without him noticing. Dad, is today really happening? He asked over breakfast, shoveling Lucky Charms into his mouth like he was fueling up for a real space mission. Like, this isn't a dream, right? I reached over and messed up his already crazy bedhead hair. It's really happening, buddy. Your big day. The guests started showing up around 2 o'clock. Liam had invited 7 kids from school, mostly the quiet ones like him who were into science and building things. These weren't the popular kids who got invited to every party in town, but they were Liam's crew, and watching them all get excited about the space theme made my heart feel like it might burst. Owen's mom brought her camera and started snapping pictures of everything. Marcus, this is incredible. Liam must feel like the luckiest kid in the world. And looking at my son's face as he showed his friends around the mission control center Camille had set up, I believed it. This was exactly what he dreamed about. The games went off without a hitch. We did this scavenger hunt where the kids had to find alien artifacts hidden around the yard, and Liam was in his element, helping the younger kids figure out the clues. No drama, no tears, just pure joy. Even when little Sophie accidentally knocked over the juice table, Liam just laughed and said, "That's okay. Astronauts have to clean up messes in space all the time." Then came the moment we'd all been waiting for. Rosa from the bakery had delivered the cake around noon, and it was even more amazing than I'd hoped. The rocket ship on top actually had little LED lights inside that made it glow. The planets looked so real you wanted to reach out and touch them. Liam's eyes went wide when we carried it out, and he whispered, "It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect." We gathered around the picnic table, all the kids singing "Happy Birthday" at the top of their lungs. Liam was standing there, 10 candles flickering in front of him, this look of pure concentration on his face. He closed his eyes tight, made his wish, probably something about becoming a real astronaut or building robots that could explore Mars, and took that deep breath he'd been practicing for weeks. That's when I saw Derek moving. He'd been hanging back by the fence, drinking beer and scrolling through his phone for most of the party. I'd actually started to think maybe our conversation had gotten through to him. Maybe he was going to behave himself for once. But I should have known better. I should have been watching him like a hawk. Derek came charging across the yard like he was making a touchdown run, this wild grin on his face, and before I could even react, before I could step between him and my son, he grabbed the back of Liam's head and slammed his face straight down into that beautiful cake. The sound of my son's scream will haunt me for the rest of my life. Not just the surprise and shock of it, but real pain, genuine terror, because one of those candles, still lit, still burning, caught him right across the cheek as his face went down. Everything went dead silent. 7 kids and 4 adults just standing there in shock. Nobody moving, nobody breathing. Liam's face came up covered in blue frosting and chocolate crumbs. But worse than that was the angry red mark already forming on his left cheek, where that candle had burned him. "Oh shit," Derek said, and even he looked surprised. "I didn't mean for the... Get away from him," I roared, pushing Derek back so hard he stumbled and nearly fell over the cooler. I dropped to my knees next to Liam, trying to wipe the frosting away from his eyes, checking the burn on his face. "Daddy," Liam sobbed, and the way his voice cracked just destroyed me. "My cake. He ruined my cake." Owen's mom was already digging ice out of the cooler for Liam's burn. Sophie started crying because she was scared. 2 of the other kids asked their parents if they could go home. The perfect party I'd spent weeks planning was falling apart in real time. But you know what really killed me? What really made my blood boil? Camille wasn't rushing to help our son. She was standing there arguing with me. "Marcus, calm down. Derek didn't know about the candle. It was an accident." An accident? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I warned him. I specifically told him not to pull this crap. "It was just supposed to be funny," Derek mumbled. But he was backing away from me now, finally realizing he'd crossed a line he couldn't uncross. Just supposed to be funny. My son was crying. His face was burned, his dream cake was destroyed, and it was supposed to be funny. The worst part about that moment wasn't even Derek's stupid grin or my son's tears. It was watching my wife, the woman I'd been married to for 12 years, the mother of my child, look me dead in the eye and tell me I was overreacting. Like watching our son get burned by a candle was somehow my fault for being upset about it. "Marcus, you need to chill out," Camille said, her voice taking on that sharp edge it gets when she's embarrassed. "Everyone's staring. You're making a scene." Making a scene? Our kid was standing there with frosting matted in his hair and a red welt forming on his cheek, and I was making a scene? I felt like I was living in some alternate reality where up was down and protecting your child was somehow the wrong thing to do. Owen's mom, bless her heart, had already taken charge of the situation, pressing a bag of ice wrapped in a paper towel against Liam's burn. "Honey, this is going to help with the sting," she told him softly. "My son Tyler had something similar happen with a sparkler last 4th of July. I knelt down next to Liam, trying to keep my voice calm even though every muscle in my body was coiled tight with rage. "How's it feeling, buddy? Does it hurt a lot?" He nodded, these big tears rolling down his cheeks, cutting clean tracks through the blue frosting. "It burns, Dad. And my cake. Look at my cake." The masterpiece that Rosa had spent 2 days creating was completely destroyed. The rocket ship had snapped off and was lying sideways in a pile of crumbled fondant planets. Saturn's rings were scattered across the table like broken dreams. All those weeks of planning, all that excitement, reduced to a mess that looked like someone had dropped it from the International Space Station. "Derek didn't mean it," Camille's mother chimed in, and I swear to God, hearing those words from my mother-in-law made my eye twitch. Margaret's always had this way of defending Derek no matter what he does, like he's still some innocent little kid instead of a grown man who should know better. "He was just trying to include himself in the fun," she continued, dabbing at the frosting on the table with a napkin like that would somehow fix everything. "You know Derek, he's always been the jokester of the family. Remember when he put plastic wrap over the toilet seat at Christmas? We all laughed about that for weeks." "Yeah, I remembered that too. I also remembered being the one who had to clean up the mess when Liam used the bathroom later and got confused about why water was splashing everywhere. Real hilarious stuff." Derek himself was standing off to the side, hands shoved deep in his pockets, looking like he wanted to disappear into the ground. But instead of apologizing, instead of rushing over to check on the nephew he'd just burned, he was making these weak-ass excuses. "I really didn't see the candles were still lit," he mumbled. "I thought they were already blown out. My bad, little dude. My bad. My bad." That's what you say when you accidentally use someone's coffee mug at work, not when you assault a 10-year-old at his own birthday party. 3 of the kids had already asked their parents to take them home. Sophie was still crying because the whole scene had scared her. Owen was trying to cheer up Liam by showing him the Pokemon cards he'd brought as a gift, but my son wasn't having it. He just kept touching the burn on his cheek and staring at the ruins of his cake. "I don't want to open presents," Liam said quietly, and those 6 words hit me harder than any punch Derek could have thrown. This was supposed to be his day, his moment to feel special and celebrated and loved. And now he just wanted it to be over. Liam, sweetie, don't let Uncle Derek's silliness ruin your whole party, Camille said, crouching down next to him. We can still have fun. Look, Owen brought you something really cool. But Liam shook his head and pressed closer to me. I want to go inside, Dad. My face hurts. That's when Owen, this quiet kid who barely speaks above a whisper most days, looked directly at Derek and said, "That wasn't funny. That was mean." Out of the mouths of babes, right? A 10-year-old had more sense than 3 grown adults combined. Instead of backing down, instead of acknowledging that maybe, just maybe, a child calling you mean might be a sign you screwed up, Derek got defensive. Hey now, little man, I was just playing around. Sometimes grown-ups play different than kids do. Playing is supposed to be fun for everyone. Owen shot back, and I wanted to high-five this kid. Liam wasn't having fun. Nobody was having fun except you. Camille pulled me aside then, her grip tight on my arm. Let it go, she whispered urgently. It's Liam's birthday. Don't make this into some big family drama. Derek feels bad enough already. Let it go. Let it go? I looked at my wife, really looked at her, and for the first time in our marriage, I didn't recognize the person standing in front of me. This was the woman who'd stayed up all night when Liam had pneumonia as a baby, who'd fought tooth and nail to get him into the advanced reading program at school, who'd driven 40 minutes each way to find the exact Lego set he wanted for Christmas. But when her brother burned our son's face and destroyed his birthday cake, suddenly I was supposed to let it go. That night, after the guests had gone home and the decorations were taken down, I sat on Liam's bed while he pressed a fresh ice pack to his cheek. His room was dark except for the glow-in-the-dark stars on his ceiling, the same kind Camille had used for the party decorations. Dad, he said softly. Yeah, buddy. Why did Mom let him hurt me? I didn't have an answer for that question. Hell, I'm still trying to figure it out myself. Sleep didn't come that night. Not even close. I lay there staring at the ceiling fan going round and round, listening to Camille's steady breathing beside me, and all I could think about was the look on Liam's face when he asked me why his mom let Derek hurt him. That question kept playing on repeat in my head like a broken record, and every time it cycled through, I got angrier. By 3 in the morning, I was wide awake and pacing the hallway. I kept checking on Liam, watching him sleep with that angry red mark still visible on his cheek, even in the dark. The kid was exhausted from crying, from having his whole world turned upside down on what was supposed to be the best day of the year for him. Every time I saw that burn, something twisted tighter in my chest. Around 4:30, I found myself down in the garage, just standing there in my boxers and an old Spurs t-shirt, staring at all the tools hanging on my pegboard. That's when I saw it. My old Louisville Slugger from college, hanging on 2 rusty nails behind my workbench. I hadn't touched that bat in probably 8 years, not since Liam was too little to play catch properly. I took it down and felt the familiar weight of it in my hands. 34 inches of solid ash wood, slightly worn where my hands used to grip it during weekend games with the guys from my dorm. Back then, the biggest worry I had was whether I could hit a curveball or if I'd have enough beer money to last the weekend. Life was simple, uncomplicated. Nobody was burning my kid's face and calling it a joke. By sunrise, I knew exactly what I had to do. Derek lived with his parents still, 27 years old, and still crashing in his childhood bedroom because he couldn't hold down a job long enough to afford his own place. The family home was this big colonial-style house in the nice part of town, the kind of place where the homeowners association sends you passive-aggressive letters if your grass gets too long. I threw on some jeans and a clean t-shirt, grabbed my keys, and headed out. Camille was still asleep, probably would be for another 2 hours. She'd always been a heavy sleeper, could sleep through a tornado if she had to. Part of me was glad she wasn't awake to try to talk me out of what I was about to do. The drive over to Derek's house took about 15 minutes, and with every mile, I felt more focused, more determined. People think anger makes you sloppy, makes you stupid, but that's not always true. Sometimes anger gives you clarity. Sometimes it shows you exactly what needs to be done. Derek's precious black Jeep Wrangler was sitting in the driveway like always. This wasn't just any vehicle. This was his pride and joy, his baby. He'd bought it used 3 years ago and spent every weekend since then modifying it, adding these ridiculous oversized tires and a light bar that could probably be seen from space. He was constantly posting pictures of it on Instagram, taking it to car shows, bragging about the sound system he'd installed. Beast mode, that's what he called it. Had a custom license plate and everything. The thing was spotless, waxed every Sunday, interior detailed like he was selling it to a museum. Derek treated that Jeep better than he treated most people in his life. I parked across the street and sat there for maybe 5 minutes, bat resting across my lap, thinking about what I was about to do. This wasn't some heat-of-the-moment decision. This was calculated, deliberate. Derek needed to understand what it felt like to watch something you care about get destroyed for someone else's entertainment. The neighborhood was still quiet, most people probably having their first cup of coffee or getting ready for church. Perfect timing. I walked up the driveway, raised that Louisville Slugger, and brought it down right across the center of Derek's windshield. The crash was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Spiderweb cracks shot out in every direction from the impact point, and little cubes of safety glass scattered across the hood like diamonds. The sound echoed through the whole street. This sharp, satisfying crack that said everything I'd been wanting to say for years. I heard the front door slam open before I'd even finished my swing. Derek came stumbling out in just his boxer shorts, hair sticking up in every direction, looking like he'd been hit by lightning. What the hell, Marcus? Are you insane? The whole family came pouring out behind him. Camille's dad in his bathrobe, her mom clutching a coffee mug, even Derek's older sister Kelly, who was visiting for the weekend. They all stood there on the front porch in their pajamas, staring at me like I'd just landed from another planet. I stayed calm. That was the important thing. I didn't yell, didn't threaten, didn't lose my cool. I just looked Derek straight in the eye and said, "That's what it feels like to watch something you care about get destroyed." Derek's mouth was hanging open like a fish. "Dude, that's my car. That's going to cost like $800 to fix. And my son's face is going to take 2 weeks to heal." I replied evenly. "But here's the difference. You chose to wreck his birthday. I'm choosing to wreck your windshield." Margaret started sputtering about calling the police, about how I'd lost my mind, but I held up my hand. "Derek," I said, my voice carrying across that quiet suburban morning, "don't ever lay a finger on my son again. Ever. This is your only warning." I dropped the bat right there on his driveway, turned around, and walked back to my truck. My hands weren't even shaking. For the first time in 24 hours, I felt like I could breathe again. The silence that followed my words was something else. You know that moment in movies when everything goes dead quiet before all hell breaks loose? That's exactly what this felt like, except I was living it instead of watching it on a screen. Derek stood there in his boxers, staring at his destroyed windshield like he couldn't process what had just happened. The spiderweb cracks caught the morning sunlight and threw little rainbows across his precious black paint job. "You're completely out of your mind." Camille's father finally exploded, his face turning red above his navy blue bathrobe. "Margaret, call the police right now. This is destruction of property. This is criminal." But before Margaret could even move toward the house, something incredible happened. Mrs. Chun from next door, this tiny elderly woman who'd lived on the street for like 40 years, stepped out onto her front porch and started slow clapping. Actually clapping for me. "About time someone taught that boy some manners," she called out loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. Been waiting years for this moment. That's when I realized we had an audience. People were coming out of their houses up and down the block, some still in bathrobes, others walking dogs or getting their Sunday papers. And the expressions on their faces weren't shock or disapproval, they were satisfaction. Like they'd all been waiting for someone to finally put Derek in his place. Derek's face went from confused to desperate real quick. "Come on, Marcus, this is crazy. It was just a prank, man. Just a stupid birthday prank. You can't destroy my car over a prank. Just a prank," I repeated, and I kept my voice level, controlled. "You burned my son's face with a candle. You humiliated him in front of all his friends. You destroyed something that took him weeks to plan and cost me $300 to make perfect for him. But that was just a prank. I didn't mean for the candle thing to happen. That was an accident." "The candle might have been an accident," I said, stepping closer to him. "But shoving his face into that cake wasn't. That was intentional. That was you deciding your entertainment was more important than my 10-year-old's feelings." Margaret finally found her voice, shrieking like a banshee. "This is insane. Derek, call the police. Press charges. You can't let him get away with this." But Derek wasn't moving toward his phone. He was looking around at all the neighbors who'd gathered, and I could see it dawning on him that nobody was on his side here. Mrs. Patterson from across the street was nodding along with everything I said. The young couple from the corner house, the ones with the twin babies, were filming the whole thing on their phones. That's when Camille came screeching up in her Honda Civic, probably woken up by one of her family members calling her in a panic. She jumped out of the car still wearing her pajama pants and one of my old college sweatshirts, her hair thrown up in a messy bun. "Marcus, what the hell are you doing?" she screamed, running over to examine Derek's windshield. "Have you completely lost your mind? This is my brother." And that right there, that was the moment our marriage changed forever. Because instead of asking if Derek was okay, instead of asking what had led to this moment, her first instinct was to protect the man who'd burned our son's face. Again. "Yeah, Camille, he's your brother," I said, and my voice was steady as a rock. "And Liam is your son. But somehow you keep forgetting which one of those relationships should matter more. Don't you dare lecture me about being a mother. I love Liam more than anything. Then why are you more upset about Derek's windshield than you were about Liam's burn?" She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. Because she knew I was right, and she knew everyone within earshot could hear this conversation. Derek tried to jump back into the argument, probably hoping to deflect attention from his own screw-up. "Dude, you could have just talked to me. You didn't have to go psycho with a baseball bat." "I did talk to you," I said, turning back to face him. 3 days ago, in my kitchen, I warned you specifically not to pull any pranks on Liam. I told you it was important to me, and you laughed it off. You said I needed to relax, remember? I thought you were just being overprotective, and I thought you were capable of basic human decency. Guess we were both wrong." Camille grabbed my arm then, trying to pull me away from her family. "Marcus, enough. Let's go home and talk about this like adults." But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. I shook off her grip and looked directly at each member of her family. Derek, Margaret, her father, even her sister Kelly, who was recording everything on her phone. "Here's how this is going to work," I announced loud enough for the whole street to hear. "Derek stays away from my son. Completely away. No birthday parties, no family dinners, no holidays. If I see him within 50 feet of Liam, we're going to have a much bigger problem than a broken windshield. You can't dictate who comes to family events." Margaret protested. "Watch me," I said simply. "And if anyone in this family has a problem with that arrangement, if anyone thinks I'm being unreasonable for protecting my child from someone who burned his face for entertainment, then they can stay away too." I looked directly at Camille when I said that last part. "That includes you, Camille. You're going to have to choose. Your brother who thinks hurting children is funny, or your husband and son who deserve better." The look of shock on her face told me everything I needed to know. She'd honestly never considered that I might make her pick sides. She'd assumed I'd just keep swallowing this garbage forever, keep letting Derek walk all over our family because it was easier than causing drama. "Marcus, you're being ridiculous." "No," I cut her off. "I'm being a father. Something your brother clearly never learned how to respect." I picked up my Louisville Slugger from where I dropped it, walked back to my truck, and drove home. In my rearview mirror, I could see the whole family still standing there in the driveway, arguing among themselves while neighbors continued to gather and watch the show. When I got back to the house, Liam was sitting at the kitchen table eating cereal, that burn still angry and red on his left cheek. "Dad, where did you go?" I sat down next to him and ruffled his hair. "I went to have a conversation with your Uncle Derek. I don't think he's going to bother you anymore." For the first time since his birthday party, Liam smiled. A real smile. By noon that same day, Derek had already posted on Facebook about how I was completely unhinged and dangerous to be around. The guy actually had the balls to play victim, posting pictures of his smashed windshield with captions like, "When your brother-in-law loses his mind over a harmless birthday prank, and some people seriously need anger management." He was fishing for sympathy, trying to spin the narrative like I was some psychopath who'd snapped for no reason. What Derek didn't count on was someone else having recorded the whole birthday party disaster. Turns out Owen's mom hadn't just been taking cute pictures of the kids. Her phone had been rolling video when Derek charged across the yard and slammed Liam's face into that cake. 23 seconds of crystal clear footage showing exactly what happened, including the moment the candle burned my son's cheek and his scream of pain that followed. She posted it to the neighborhood Facebook group first, with a simple caption, "This is what Derek calls a harmless prank. Judge for yourself." Within an hour, that video had been shared 47 times. By dinner, it was all over Nextdoor, Instagram, and TikTok. Someone even made it into one of those split-screen comparison videos showing Derek's harmless prank post right next to the actual footage of him hurting a 10-year-old kid. The comments were brutal. Absolutely brutal. People weren't just calling Derek out, they were demolishing him. What kind of psycho attacks a child at his own birthday party? This isn't funny, this is assault. Someone should call CPS on this family. The dad should have done more than just break his windshield. My personal favorite came from some woman named Jennifer who wrote, "I've seen Derek around town acting like an overgrown frat boy for years. Finally, someone held him accountable. That father is a hero." But the comment that really got to me was from Liam's friend Owen. "My dad said if someone did that to me, he'd do worse than break their car." Liam's dad is awesome. Derek tried damage control, posting this long, rambling explanation about how it was all a misunderstanding, how he'd been doing cake face pranks in his family for years and nobody ever got hurt before. He claimed I was overreacting because of work stress, and that Camille was caught in the middle of a difficult situation. Nobody was buying it. The video didn't lie. You could see the malicious glee on his face as he charged toward my son. You could hear Liam scream. You could see that red burn mark forming on his cheek in real time. No amount of spin was going to make that look innocent. The really satisfying part came Monday morning when I got a text from an unknown number. Turned out to be Derek's coworker at the sporting goods store where he'd been working part-time for the past 6 months. "Hey Marcus, this is Jake from Dick's Sporting Goods. Saw the video of what Derek did to your kid. Just wanted you to know our manager saw it too, and Derek won't be coming back. We don't employ people who hurt children. Your son seems like a good kid. Hope he's doing better." That afternoon, Camille's Aunt Bianca called me directly. First time she'd ever called my phone instead of going through Camille. Bianca was the family rebel, the one who'd moved to Colorado and only showed up for major holidays. She'd always been straight with me, never played those passive-aggressive games the rest of the family loved. "Marcus, I saw the video," she said without any small talk. "I've been wanting to say this for years. Derek needed his ass kicked a long time ago. Margaret and Richard have babied that boy since he was in diapers, and now look what happened. You did the right thing." Thanks, Bianca. That means a lot coming from you. Have you talked to Camille? Because I tried calling her this morning, and she's not picking up. She's been staying at her parents' house since Sunday. Won't return my calls. Bianca let out this long sigh. That girl's got her head so far up Derek's as she can't see daylight. Always has. But Marcus, don't you dare back down on this. That little boy is lucky to have a father who'll stand up for him. At school, the whole dynamic had shifted too. Liam came home Tuesday with stories about how his friends were treating him like some kind of celebrity. Kids who'd never talked to him before were coming up asking if his dad really smashed his uncle's car with a baseball bat. The burn on his cheek was healing nicely, but it had become this badge of honor somehow. Tyler asked if you could teach his dad how to use a baseball bat. Liam told me over dinner, grinning. His uncle's kind mean too. What did you tell him? I said you only use baseball bats on bullies who hurt kids. And that my dad's the best dad in the world because he believes me when I say someone's being mean. That hit me right in the chest. Because that's what this was really about, wasn't it? It wasn't about the cake or even the burn, though those were bad enough. It was about believing my son when he told me he was scared of someone. It was about showing him that his feelings mattered, that his safety was my priority, that I would always have his back no matter what. The teacher had pulled me aside at pickup that day too. Mrs. Rodriguez, who'd been teaching 4th grade for 20 years and had seen everything. "Mr. Thompson, I don't know all the details of what happened this weekend, but I wanted you to know that Liam's been different these past few days. More confident. He raised his hand in math class yesterday, first time all year. And when Jake Peterson tried to cut in front of him at lunch, Liam actually spoke up and said, 'Excuse me, I was here first.' Small things, but important things." She was right. My quiet, gentle boy was finding his voice. And it was because he'd seen his dad find his voice too. That night, as I was tucking Liam into bed, he asked me the question I'd been waiting for. "Dad, is Mom coming home soon?" I smoothed his hair back from his forehead, careful not to touch the healing burn. "I don't know, buddy. That's up to her. But you and me, we're going to be just fine either way." He nodded seriously, like he was processing something important. "Good. Because I like it when it's just us. Nobody yells, and nobody gets hurt." From the mouths of babes. For 4 days straight, Camille wouldn't even look at me. She'd come by the house to pick up clothes and check on Liam, but she treated me like I was invisible. Walking past me in our own kitchen without saying a word, talking to Liam in this overly cheerful voice like everything was totally normal, then disappearing back to her parents' house before I could try to have a real conversation. It was driving me crazy, honestly. Not because I thought I was wrong. I'd do the exact same thing again in a heartbeat, but because I missed my wife. 12 years of marriage doesn't just disappear because you have one major fight, even if that fight involves a baseball bat and property destruction. I wanted to explain my side, wanted her to understand why I'd felt like I had no other choice. But every time I tried to bring it up, she'd shut me down with this cold, distant tone I'd never heard from her before. I'm not ready to talk about this, Marcus. I need time to process what you did. Like I was the one who'd stepped out of line, like protecting our son was somehow the wrong move here. The breakthrough came Thursday evening, and it wasn't me who made it happen. It was Bianca. I was in the garage working on Liam's bike. The chain had been slipping, and I needed something to keep my hands busy when I heard Camille's car pull into the driveway. But instead of her usual routine of quick in and out, she actually stayed this time. I could hear voices in the kitchen, and one of them definitely wasn't Liam's. About 20 minutes later, Bianca stuck her head into the garage. Hey Marcus, mind if I steal your wife for a few hours? We need to have a little sister-to-sister chat. She's all yours, I said, not looking up from the bike chain. Maybe you can talk some sense into her. Bianca laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Oh, I plan to. Trust me on that. They left together in Bianca's rental car, and I didn't see Camille again until almost 10 o'clock that night. When she finally came back, she looked like she'd been crying for hours. Her eyes were red and puffy, her makeup was completely gone, and she was carrying this look of someone who'd just had their world rearranged. She found me in the living room, reading on the couch, and just stood there in the doorway for a long moment like she wasn't sure how to start. Bianca showed me something, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. What kind of something? She has video too. From the party. A longer version than what Owen's mom posted. Camille sat down on the opposite end of the couch, as far from me as she could get. She caught Derek before he ran at Liam. She got him looking around to make sure people were watching, getting this smile on his face like he was planning it. I set my book aside and really looked at my wife. What do you mean, planning it? He waited until everyone had their phones out. He made sure the kids were all gathered around. Bianca thinks he was hoping it would go viral, that he'd get likes and shares for being the fun uncle who made everyone laugh. Camille's voice cracked. Our son's humiliation was supposed to be Derek's social media moment. The silence that followed was heavy, loaded with all the things we hadn't been saying to each other for the past week. I've been so stupid, Marcus, she continued, tears starting fresh. Bianca made me watch that video 5 times. Made me see the look on Liam's face right before Derek grabbed him. Our baby was scared. He knew what was coming, and I didn't protect him. Camille. No, let me finish. You warned Derek. You told him specifically not to do this, and I thought you were being paranoid. Even after it happened, even after I saw that burn on Liam's face, I was more worried about keeping peace in my family than protecting my own son. She was crying openly now, these big tears that made her whole body shake. When you asked me to choose between Derek and our family, I got so angry because I thought you were being unfair. But you weren't asking me to choose between 2 equal things, were you? You were asking me to choose between right and wrong. I moved closer to her on the couch, close enough to take her hand. I just needed you to see what I was seeing. That Derek isn't some harmless prankster. He's a bully who picks on people smaller than him. I know that now. God, Marcus, I know that now. She looked up at me with those red, swollen eyes. Can you forgive me? Can Liam? Before I could answer, we heard footsteps on the stairs. Liam appeared in his pajamas, probably woken up by the sound of his mom crying. Mom, he said uncertainly. Are you okay? Camille opened her arms, and Liam ran to her like he'd been waiting for this moment all week. She held him tight against her chest, rocking slightly. I'm so sorry, baby, she whispered into his hair. I'm so sorry I didn't protect you. Mommy made a big mistake. It's okay, Mom, Liam said, his voice muffled against her shoulder. Dad protected me. Dad always protects me. And that's when I knew we were going to be all right. 2 weeks after the whole Derek disaster, when the burn on Liam's cheek had faded to just a faint pink line and things between Camille and me were starting to feel normal again, I made a decision. My son deserved a real birthday. Not the trauma-filled nightmare his actual birthday had become, but a genuine celebration where he felt safe and loved and special. I brought it up at dinner on a Tuesday night, while we were eating takeout Chinese food, Liam's favorite since he'd discovered chicken lo mein last year. "Hey buddy," I said, twirling noodles around my chopsticks like I was casual about this. "How would you feel about having a do-over birthday party? Just a small one with your real friends." Liam looked up from his egg roll, those big brown eyes of his lighting up but cautious at the same time. "Really? But my birthday already happened." "Yeah, but that wasn't really your birthday, was it? That was Uncle Derek's show. I'm talking about a party that's actually for you, where you get to blow out candles without anyone messing with you, where you get to make a wish that nobody interrupts." Camille reached over and squeezed Liam's hand. "Dad's right, sweetie. You deserve a real celebration, one where the only person who matters is you." The planning took about a week, but this time everything was different. Instead of trying to impress a bunch of family members who didn't really care about what Liam wanted, we focused entirely on making him happy. Liam got to pick everything: the guest list, the decorations, the games, even what kind of pizza we ordered. He chose 5 kids this time. Just 5. Owen, obviously, since that kid had become like Liam's bodyguard at school ever since the incident. Sophie, who'd been so upset about what happened at the original party that she'd drawn Liam a picture of him as a superhero to make him feel better. Tyler, the quiet kid from his math group who loved Legos as much as Liam did. Maya, this brilliant girl who was the only one in their class who could beat Liam at chess. And surprisingly, Jake Peterson, the same kid who'd been trying to cut in front of Liam at lunch before my son found his voice. "Jake's not really mean," Liam explained when I raised an eyebrow at that choice. "He just acts tough because his older brother picks on him." But he apologized about the lunch thing, and he told everyone at recess that what Uncle Derek did was messed up. "I think he needs a friend. My kid's got a bigger heart than I do, that's for sure." We decided to keep it simple this time. No elaborate themes, no pressure to create some Instagram-worthy spectacle. Just our backyard, some streamers, a playlist of music Liam actually liked, and activities that would make him smile instead of stress him out. But I did splurge on one thing: the cake. I went back to Rosa at the bakery and explained what had happened to the original masterpiece. She was horrified, absolutely horrified, when I told her how Derek had destroyed weeks of her work. "That's not just disrespectful to your son," she said, shaking her head. "That's disrespectful to every artist who puts their heart into their work. We're making Liam a new cake, and this one's going to be even better." And boy, did she deliver. The new cake looked like a golden rocket ship ready for launch, with "Liam, you're our hero" written in silver icing across the base. It was smaller than the original. We only needed to feed 8 people instead of 20, but it was perfect. Absolutely perfect. My mother Joan drove down from Dallas for the party, bringing this huge wrapped box that turned out to be a telescope she'd found at an estate sale. "Every future astronaut needs a telescope," she told Liam, ruffling his hair the same way I always did. "Your grandfather would have loved to see you explore the stars." The party itself was everything the first one should have been. The kids actually got to play the games we'd planned. They did the space scavenger hunt without anyone getting hurt or scared. They ate pizza and told jokes and argued about which superhero would win in a fight. Normal kid stuff that had been missing from the original disaster. When it came time for cake, I made sure everyone stayed back and gave Liam his moment. No adults hovering, no one making jokes, just a 10-year-old boy standing in front of his rocket ship cake with 10 flickering candles. "Make a good wish, buddy," I said softly. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath just like he'd been practicing, and blew out every single candle in one try. The kids cheered, Camille clapped, and Joan wiped away a tear she thought nobody would notice. "What did you wish for?" Sophie asked. Liam grinned. That same grin he'd had on the morning of his original birthday, before everything went wrong. "I can't tell you, or it won't come true." But it already kind of came true anyway. After cake, after presents, after all the kids had gone home talking about what a great party it was, I found Liam in his room setting up his new telescope by the window. "Good day?" I asked. "The best," he said without looking away from the eyepiece. "Dad, thank you for giving me a real birthday. Thank you for being patient while we figured out how to do it right." That's when I pulled out the final surprise, something I'd been planning since the day I smashed Derek's windshield. A small cardboard box with holes punched in the top and a big red bow. "What's this?" Liam asked. "Open it and see." He lifted the lid carefully, and out popped the most beautiful golden retriever puppy I'd ever seen. 8 weeks old, fluffy as a teddy bear, with these bright blue eyes that matched Liam's own sense of wonder. "Oh my God," Liam gasped, gathering the puppy into his arms. "Dad, is he really mine?" "He's really yours. His name's Astro, and he's going to be your adventure buddy for the next 15 years or so." Liam buried his face in Astro's fur, and when he looked up at me, his eyes were shining with pure joy. "This really is the best day ever," he whispered. And for the first time in weeks, I believed that everything was going to be okay. 6 months later, I ran into Derek at the grocery store. Completely by accident. I was picking up dog food for Astro when I turned the corner into the cereal aisle, and there he was, looking like a completely different person. Gone was the cocky swagger, the loud voice, the entitled smirk. He looked smaller somehow, deflated, like someone had finally punctured that bubble of arrogance he'd been living in his whole life. He saw me before I could duck into another aisle, and for a second we just stood there staring at each other over the Cheerios display. Then, to my complete shock, he actually walked over. "Marcus," he said quietly. I wanted to say something to you." I didn't make it easy for him. Just stood there waiting, one hand on my shopping cart, the other holding a bag of Astro's favorite kibble. "I've been going to therapy," he continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "Court-ordered, actually. Turns out someone posted that video to Reddit, and it got picked up by some local news stations. My boss at the new place saw it, and said I had to get help or find another job." Good, I thought, but I didn't say it out loud. The therapist, she made me watch that video. Made me really look at what I did to Liam. And Marcus, I swear to God, I never realized how scared he looked. I never saw that before. I just saw what I wanted to see. Everyone gathering around, phones coming out, a chance to be the center of attention. He paused, running a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture I'd never seen from him before. "I've got a nephew now, too. My sister Kelly's boy, Connor. He's only 3, but watching him at family dinners. I keep thinking about how I'd feel if someone did to him what I did to Liam. And it makes me sick, Marcus. It literally makes me physically sick." I could see he was waiting for me to say something, to maybe accept his apology or tell him we were cool now. But that wasn't going to happen. Some bridges, once you burn them, stay burned. "I appreciate you telling me this," I said finally. "But my concern isn't your therapy or your job or how you feel about what you did. My concern is my son, and he's doing great without you in his life." Derek nodded like he'd expected that response. I know I can't fix this, but I wanted you to know that you were right. About everything. I was a bully, and I was hurting people, and nobody ever called me on it until you did. Took a baseball bat to get through to you. Yeah, it did. Maybe that's what I needed all along. Someone who wouldn't just enable my garbage behavior." After he walked away, I stood there for a few minutes thinking about consequences and accountability. Derek had lost more than just a windshield that day. He'd lost his job, his reputation, his place in the family dynamic. But more importantly, he'd been forced to confront the kind of person he'd become. Meanwhile, Liam was thriving. The confidence boost from seeing his dad stand up for him had transformed my quiet, anxious boy into someone who spoke up for himself and others. He joined the robotics club at school, made friends with kids who shared his interests instead of just accepting whoever would tolerate him. He even started a petition to get healthier lunch options in the cafeteria, and won. Dad taught me it's okay to say stop. I'd overheard him telling his friend Owen last week. Sometimes grown-ups don't listen unless you make them listen. Camille and I had rebuilt our marriage too, but it looked different now. She'd learned to set boundaries with her family, to put our nuclear family first instead of trying to keep peace with everyone. When her parents complained about missing Liam at Christmas because we decided to stay home instead of subjecting him to potential Derek encounters, she told them straight up, "You can see your grandson when you can guarantee his safety. Until then, we're doing holidays our way." That night, as I was tucking Liam into bed, Astro curled up at his feet like always. He asked me a question that caught me off guard. "Dad, do you think Uncle Derek learned his lesson?" "I think so, buddy." "Why?" "Because Connor's really little, and I don't want Uncle Derek to be mean to him too. Even after everything Derek had put him through, my son was worried about protecting another kid. That's when I knew we'd done something right. We'd raised a boy who understood that standing up to bullies isn't about revenge. It's about protecting the people who can't protect themselves. You know what, Liam? If Derek ever does anything to hurt Connor, you let me know. Because that baseball bat's still in the garage. Liam grinned. I love you, Dad. I love you too, son. Sweet dreams. Sometimes you need a bat, not to destroy, but to protect. And sometimes the most important lesson you can teach your kid is that their voice matters, their safety matters, and they'll always have someone in their corner who's willing to fight for them. Even if it means swinging for the fences.